A tropical storm forming off the southeast coast looking now more likely, and I've got brand new model data that's going to show us what we're looking at here. Hi, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice. Watching this tropical trouble. Yeah, the models here have been trending toward a little bit more aggressive at a tropical storm forming here off the Florida-Georgia coast and trying to at least bring some impacts late this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, for parts of the southeast, including the Carolinas, which we're going to map out here step by step of the way here. So if you will, please let me know where you're watching from right now. That does help me when I'm forecasting here. Put it in the comments section, like this video, and share it with your family. That would help me out. So here we are into hurricane season. We're on our third name system if we were able to get it this weekend. And if we do, the name is going to be called Chantal. Now, watching this closely, we've got a couple of different new pieces of information in. In fact, I've been having my eyes peeled now that we're at night, the visible satellite changing over to infrared. What a beautiful sight that is. The lights come out in the cities, and you can see what's going on here toward the Gulf is there's a big blowup of storms. This associated, if you play connect the dots, with a frontal boundary. That front is going to be key to what happens later this week. It's going to help form a tropical system, and as we look at the new update from the National Hurricane Center, they've shifted kind of their thoughts a little bit. Instead of it being maybe here in the Gulf, then crossing over, no longer looking to be the case. It would form, if it does, here over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, which does give it some potential. This is some of the warmest water in the Atlantic Basin right here, and that's where it could form, and frankly, why it could form. So there's an old frontal boundary stalled out right here. There's lots of moisture here in the Gulf that moves over Florida into the Atlantic and along that front, and that's where we may get something to spin up later in the holiday weekend. Now, many of you are asking, would I cancel plans? Would I go to Florida? Would I go to the Carolinas? Yes, my family, if it were me, I can't make a decision for you, but if it were me, I would not be canceling any kind of plans. Know that it's going to be wet at times, but know that it's not going to be a complete washout. Let's map it out. Here's the brand new European model, an average of all 51 of them. It's a much better way at forecasting than looking at one model versus another, European versus GFS, because they're going to fluctuate. I do look at those, sure, but I really hang my hat more on something like this called the ensembles. It averages together 51 different scenarios. So each starting block has a little different influence to it, more moisture, maybe a different location. And if you end up at the same spot 51 different runs later, you got a pretty accurate forecast. So an average of all those computer models showing the probability of a named tropical system Saturday beginning to go up. If you look at your key down here, anything above 50 is this kind of yellowish green color. So a greater than 50% chance. So now looking more likely that we'll have a tropical depression or a tropical storm here off the coast of Florida, Georgia, and just south of South Carolina going into Saturday at 8 a.m., going into Sunday at 8 a.m., so that 24-hour time frame. Then it moves up toward the north and looks like land interacts with it, and whatever this mess is kind of stays sloppy and messy. So what would this look like in a couple of different ways? Let me show you the icon. It's been the most aggressive, but honestly was one of the early adopters at this thing trying to form. So let's just start from the beginning. Here's the old frontal boundary settling toward the coast. Anytime you stall out a front this time of the year in that area, it's fair game for forming into something. And here we go into the Thursday, 4th of July time frame into Friday, which is the 4th of July, so the 3rd into the 4th. This would be July 4th in the morning, so Friday morning, look at that little spin here. Wouldn't be surprised if by Friday we have a pretty high chance, if not maybe a potential tropical cyclone or maybe even a tropical depression at this point. By Friday late into Saturday, there's a little bit more organization. So you have to have a couple of different things for it to be a named tropical system. You have to have the core that is of tropical nature, and you also have to have enough organization and wind gusts that are capable of being that's sustained at 39 miles per hour. So does that happen? It's possible. But if it does, the winds would be right here in that northeastern quadrant, which, as you can see here, would be from Savannah or Charleston, a couple of 100 miles out to sea. So that's good. At least now it looks like if we do get a named tropical system, it'll be off the coast and it will be a couple of 100 miles away from land. That said, there's going to be a lot of influx of moisture here across South Florida, Central Florida at times as this thing's trying to form, especially Thursday, Friday, it looks like a big old plume of Gulf moisture just streaming right into the Big Bend region, Central Florida, into the Atlantic. That's going to be very wet Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But honestly, Saturday, Sunday, if your travels take you to Florida, you're on the other side of that circulation. So northerly winds are being yanked down. So it might actually dry out a little bit here across the panhandle of Florida if your travels take you there. Big Bend region, down through Daytona, Orlando. After days of rain and muggy conditions, might actually start to feel a little bit better as we go into our Friday, Saturday time frame. But this is when the icon shows this thing trying to wrap up. And you see here fluctuating into some stronger winds. If we look at the wind gusts, which we'll pull up right here, they never really get crazy high, which is good news. Even if this thing does form into something, you got sustained winds down here that are getting close to 35 to 36 miles per hour. You know, enough to be a tropical system maybe, but oof, that's pretty close. Probably just a low pressure, subtropical or tropical low. Either way, I think the impacts are going to be the same. Rip currents. Rip currents are going to be a very high risk up and down the eastern seaboard here from the Outer Banks through Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Hilton Head Island, Savannah, Tybee, Brunswick, St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, down here to St. Mary's. The rip currents are going to be very, very strong, and that is a concern of mine because I've got little ones, and I know that on a good day, the rip currents can be bad. You add in a low pressure system that just has extra pull to the currents and can be oh so dangerous. How about the rain? Where does the rain go? Well, early on, like I mentioned, it's on like Donkey Kong across Central Florida, Tampa, Sarasota, South Florida. We're talking a couple of inches of rain Thursday, Friday, and then this thing's just kind of out to sea. So right now, we may have a named tropical system that's putting down 10, 15 inches of rain a couple hundred miles out to sea. You know, because if it's right here, that right side is going to be where the worst of it is. Now, this thing's cranking up some waves here across the Atlantic, but it's not causing a lot of inland producing rain. So look at this, nothing in the Western Carolinas. Half an inch to an inch across Myrtle Beach. This would be all the way through Sunday. Sunday night into Monday is when, if this tropical system does make landfall, and according to the icon, it does, it would move inland of Horry County, and 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 inches of rain would be up through Wilmington. So that would be the time frame, I think, Sunday night into Monday, that if you're at the beach, know that, okay, late Sunday we're going to dinner and then it's raining. I mean, it's not going to wash out your entire Sunday morning. And by Monday morning, this thing's kind of kicking out toward the east. So if you have plans to go to the beach starting this weekend, I don't think you're going to have, you know, your whole week be ruined, but know that it could rain and things could get dicey. Could have some flooding in some streets. Anytime you get that much rain in that period of time, flooding is certainly a possibility. So watching all the different models here, GFS, European, they all have a low out here producing some pretty big rain. GFS wants to keep it out to sea and stay there. Let's look at the wind gust swath from the GFS, all right? That'll give us a good idea at where things are going. Let's do swath here. Forgive me, hit the wrong button. There we go. So look, it's got a little low with some of the wind spinning up right here, but as it goes on up, you see the winds stay just offshore. So tropical system, maybe, but the winds stay mainly offshore. The European has a very similar look. If the low's right here kind of coming on, those bigger winds are going to be just offshore. You see a 37 mile per hour wind gust in Georgetown. I mean, that would be close to tropical storm strength, but again, we're not talking 50, 60, 70, 80 miles per hour here with the models. Most of them keep this system muted, but there. Does that make sense? Muted, present, possible for a tropical development. Let's look at what else is cooking out there, because as we go into July, you know, it's that time of the year that we start to kickstart things, and things are possible. No hurricane. None of the models really kick a hurricane up out of this. In fact, all the 51 different runs of the European say nada. No, we're not getting a hurricane out of this. But nothing else is cooking in the Caribbean, the Gulf, or the Atlantic into that second half of that second week of July. So through the 13th, we're looking like this may be the only only storm in town to kind of give us a threat. Now, this is in an area that does present a lot of, as we call it, ocean heat content. So that area does look to be ripe for possible development, and if there's enough fuel for it, that area over the Gulf Stream does produce quite a bit of warm waters to fuel that. So what you can count on from me is to keep you posted around the clock here. If you're new to this channel, please consider liking this video. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Turn on notifications. If anything changes with this storm and I do a video, it will alert you and let you know that I've got a new video that just launched, and I'll keep you posted because my goal is to keep you informed. I have a family. We're on the go a lot, and when we're moving out and about, I want to kind of know what the plan is, what we're doing. So that's my goal for you, is to arm you with the information you need to keep your family safe this entire hurricane season. So we'll talk soon, folks. Stay tuned.